while since I've been on here. I think almost like 2 months or something. That's crazy. But yes, we are doing fine. All is well, and we are coming up on just about 1 year of living in Ethiopia. So before I get into the review, thank you guys for those of you who sent emails or wrote comments asking about us and asking how we're doing. Thank you guys so much. We're doing very well. We appreciate your support. Thank you for continuing to follow our journey as we are transitioning as a family from the US to Ethiopia permanently. So as you can tell from the title, today's video is going to be about our first year living in Ethiopia, some of the things that we experienced, some of the changes that have taken place. I'm going to do kind of like a big picture overview. There will be some details here and there, but just kind of a big picture overview of our experience, just to kind of give you all an idea of maybe what you might expect if you're planning to move to Ethiopia. So I have a list here, so I'll be looking down periodically just so I don't miss anything and I can hit all the points I wanted to hit. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the average cost of living. I did mention in one of my previous videos that I think we were spending about 40,000 birr per month for a family of 5. So that includes food, transportation. We've been taking public transportation, but I guess private owned public transportation, similar to Uber and Lyft. It's called Ride. So the 40,000 birr includes transportation, getting around town, food, and other, just miscellaneous things, such as eating out or entertainment and stuff like that. I didn't include rent because I will go over that shortly. But yeah, so about, I would say 40 to maybe 50, depending on how much eating out you're doing or, what type of things you're buying. 40 to 50,000 birr per month is reasonable and can be expected for a family of 5. So the cost of living when we got there around August 2023 was higher, I believe, at that time, in terms of buying food and things like that. So earlier on when we came, I think we were coming kind of at the tail end of, the big Tigray war and the war that was going on in Amhara that is still ongoing to a great extent. And so prices for teff, which is the grain used to make injera, for those who don't know, onions, tomatoes, stuff like that was higher at that time. So for example, the price of 1 kilo of onion at the time that we arrived and a few months after was around 150 birr. I would say 100 to 150 birr, depending on the area or where you buy. And that's a lot, for onion. Now, and in recent days, it's gone down to about 60 birr a kilo. So similar things with tomatoes and, other produce. Things have gone down. Meat, I think meat remained relatively consistent throughout the year. It's about 700 to 800 birr per kilo at a butcher for beef. And then if you want to buy a whole sheep or actually we weren't buying sheep, so if you were going to buy a whole goat, we were typically paying around 13,000 birr for a goat. And that is for like a good sized goat, good quality meat. And obviously you can go higher than that or lower than that based on your budget. So that's the cost of food. Transportation pretty much also remained the same. For one ride to go from where we live about maybe 10 or 15 minutes away was about 200 birr. And then if we're going from where we live a little bit further, maybe 30 minutes into Bole, that would be about 300 to 400 birr. So And I think that pretty much remained consistent throughout the time that we were there. Bajajes are cheap, and they still are, and that is about 10 to 15 birr, depending on where you're going, per person. And we didn't take buses much or taxis that often, but those prices are relatively low, very low actually. And so in terms of rent, our rent for the year obviously remained the same, because we paid 6 months at a time and had a 1-year contract and our agreement with the owner of the house. I would say the cost of rent has gone up over the year, but has it been a significant increase? I guess it depends on the area that you're in. We may have seen, we don't know for sure because we didn't change our location, but maybe a 10,000 birr per month increase has happened in our area, and maybe more or less in other parts of the city. So one thing I did want to make sure to mention is that there are new laws governing rent in Addis. And so as of, I guess it's the last few months this was put in place. I'm not 100% sure, but it is recent. So within the last few months, the new rules regulating rent is that the homeowner has to make an agreement with the renter for 2 years. And that means during that 2-year time period, the rent cannot be changed, the rent rate. So it cannot be increased over a 2-year time period. Because what was happening is, like, people would make a 1-year contract, and then after a year, the rent would go up, or a 6-month contract or agreement, and then after 6 months, the rent would go up. So for 2 years, the rent has to stay the same. That does not mean that the renter has to stay in the home for 2 years. They can choose to leave the property with some, I think, advance notice, 30 days or something like that. Depending, I think the law is 30 days, but don't quote me on that. But you do need some advance notice if you're going to vacate the property. Something else that's new. So previously, I think the minimum that you could pay for your rent was 6 months, and then make an agreement for a year. Some people would be more flexible, some homeowners, and they would allow you to pay 3 months and then, make an agreement for 6 months. But the new law is that a renter only has to pay a minimum of 2 months. So a renter does not have to pay more than 2 months rent at a time, which is good because you can keep more of your cash in your pocket without having to spend large amounts of your money all at one time on rent. What else I have to say about the rent? So I haven't personally experienced this, but a friend of mine that I know has said that she's seen some government people going door to door, and they have been asking the renter how much their rent is, and if it exceeds a certain amount, or if they consider it to be too high for that property, they will make the homeowner reduce the rent. So I think there's some kind of regulation happening with rent in Addis, which is good, because in some of these places, it's insane the amount of rent that they're asking. And, for the property that they're offering, it just doesn't match. And I know some of you guys were complaining in one of my previous videos where I was showing some really decent, good looking apartments. And people are like, wow, this is way expensive. Like, this is way more than you would even pay in California, or equivalent to what you would pay in California, and not even in as nice of an area. I agree. It's crazy expensive. So, but obviously if you're in Bole versus another part of the city, you're going to pay more. So another thing about homeowners is that they have to now pay tax on their income that they receive from rent. So previously, this has kind of been just free income for homeowners, and they can charge what they want. They can make you pay 6 months at a time, and they don't have to pay anything on the money. It's just free money. But now homeowners who are renting out as a form of income have to report that income to the government and pay tax on it. So if you're a homeowner, I guess it kind of sucks, but maybe it'll do some good. I don't know. Maybe it's just a money grab by the government? I don't know. But, you know, I don't get too much into government stuff on this channel, so just giving you an update on the changes. Okay, so moving on from rent. Our kids, how did they adjust? They adjusted really well over this year. Our middle child, he didn't really eat that much injera initially, but as time went on, he got used to it, and now he eats injera for lunch, for dinner, whenever we're having it, and he's fine with it. Also, all three of our children eat injera and they enjoy it. They also, you know, eat other types of food that I might make in the house. Sometimes I'll fix them chicken nuggets or burgers or pasta, rice, fried rice, stuff like that. So they get a variety of different foods that they're used to, and they are also comfortable with eating injera, which is a good thing because that is the primary food in Ethiopia. And when you're trying to save money, eating shuro or, you know, vegetables with injera, it's great and it tastes good and it's good for you. So the kids are good on the food front. They've made a lot of friends. So in the neighborhood we live in, there's a lot of kids. I think there's just a lot of kids in Ethiopia in general. I think people value family and they actually value children. And so our kids were able to make friends with a lot of the neighborhood kids, and they get together, they play, they come to our house or our kids go to their house, and they play soccer outside. You know, they just have a really great time. And since our community is kind of like gated, like it's not like a gated community that you would think of in the US or somewhere with like a code box, you got to put in the code and whatever. But there are gates that will close off our little neighborhood. And so, you know, as long as my kids are in that area, I'm okay with them going to their friend's house. I might walk them down or have somebody walk down with them to make sure they get there safe and everything's good. But, you know, I can be in the house and cooking or doing whatever and feel safe and confident that they'll be safe where they are. And, you know, I know the people, I know their families. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. And also, bonus, the kids that they play with also speak English. So, my children can, you know, kind of feel comfortable in the language that they're used to, and at the same time, learn Amharic, because the other kids will maybe speak Amharic to each other, and our kids will pick up on the communication and the words, and they will learn Amharic. So, that is another great thing for the kids. Also, we have found, as we have been living in Addis, that there are a lot of activities to do with kids, especially if you're a diaspora family or a family that can afford them. There are movie theaters, there are indoor playgrounds, there are arcades. Most of the hotels, like the big hotels, have swimming pools, so you can take them swimming. And all the pools are heated, which is another bonus. Some are indoor, some are outdoor. There are the big things, you know, to do in Ethiopia, like in Toto Park and Keruftu, which is the water park area that they have in Debre Zeit. So yeah, there's lots of things to do with kids. Obviously, you don't have to take them out all the time. Like I said, like there's plenty for them to do and be entertained in the neighborhood with their friends. But every once in a while, we'll take them out and let them have a special, you know, outing. The other thing, so school, the kids did enjoy their school. Now, this is something I really want to kind of go a little bit more into detail about. So there are three main types of school in Ethiopia. There are the government schools, there are local private schools, and there are international schools. Our children started out at a local private school for this past year. And the price was great. It was very close to our house. So, you know, I didn't have to travel. I could walk them to school, walk to pick them up. So that was great. They made friends. I think they learned a lot. However, while the local private schools, I would say, are probably a step up from the government school, maybe a step down from the international school, I felt like my younger child, who was in pre-K, and then my older, who was in 3rd grade this year, had a different learning experience. I thought my younger child got probably a better education, if I'm honest, this year than my third grader. The teacher, I don't know if this was just random or if it's consistent, but the teacher that my third grader got didn't really speak English well. So he was the assistant teacher, I think, but I rarely saw the main teacher. The curriculum was in English, but I don't know. I just feel like the teaching methodologies weren't strong. And I'm just being honest. This is our experience. I don't know what anybody else's experience was with a local private school, but at the school we were at, I felt like the teaching methodologies could have been strengthened. The teaching tools weren't really there. I did a lot of teaching at home to reinforce what my child was learning, and it worked out fine. But yeah. So I wasn't thrilled with it, and if I had the option, I probably wouldn't send them there again. I don't know. Sorry, I have to sneeze. Okay, I'm back. So, there is another new development, a new law in Ethiopia. I don't think it just applies to Addis, but local private schools are now being instructed by the government to only teach in Amharic. I mean, there may be some like Afan classes or something like that, but the curriculum, the main curriculum, it has to be the government curriculum, and it has to be taught in Amharic. And they're not allowed to have any extra classes like math in English or science in English or, whatever, no English taught. So for that reason, we have been forced to transition our kids from the local private school to an international school. Just because even if they are learning the language or even know it fluently, Amharic fluently, I think it will be difficult for them in the long run to learn these things, math, science, whatever, in Amharic. And then when they get out of school and maybe they decide to go to the US or they decide to go wherever they decide to go, I think being taught in English would benefit them more. And also they aren't fluent in the language, so at this stage they need to be taught in English. So we have already enrolled our children in an international school. The price for that is higher, but it isn't it's not like backbreaking higher. And the only reason why for us it's not backbreaking is because we are permanent residents in Ethiopia. We have the yellow card, the permanent residency card. So we get the rate that other local Ethiopians get. Foreign students, foreign families have to pay significantly more. And I mean like per term, I think the price for one school, which is pretty much outrageous, or a couple, it's around $10,000 per term. Ones that are more reasonable, I think they are about, maybe 40 to 50,000 per term, which is still a lot. For locals, it's closer to between 20, 25, 26,000 per term. So it really helps to get that yellow card if you're planning to move to Ethiopia, become a permanent resident, so that you can find out where to put your kids. Additionally, homeschooling. Homeschooling is technically not legal in Ethiopia. I don't know if that's new or what, but it's technically not legal. I don't want to advise you to do it, but I'll just leave that there. It's technically not legal. So consider those options when you are thinking of moving to Ethiopia and what type of education you will give your kids. The school that we chose, our children will be learning in English. They will also be learning French because it's just included in the curriculum. And so the curriculum that our school is using is called, it's escaping me. Cambridge is one of the curriculums that are used by international schools, but our school doesn't use Cambridge. They use, I'm not going to waste time, but if I think about it, I'll insert it later. So yeah, and they also have campuses around the world. So there's truly an international school. Some of the international schools in Addis only have an international license. You know, they have been accredited as an international school, but they only have one location, one branch, you know, in Ethiopia. The school we chose has multiple branches in Ethiopia and has branches internationally. So it is truly an international school. The kids will be able to take Amharic if we want them to, so that they can continue to learn Amharic. Also, one of the benefits of putting your kids in international school is that they do not have to take the national exams. So if your child is in a government school or a local private school, they will need to take the national exams at grade, I think it's 6, 8, and then is it 12? I think those are, it changes like frequently. So, but I think that most recently, that's what I heard. So if your child does not pass the national exam at grade 6, they will need to repeat grade 6 again. Same thing at grade 8, they will need to repeat it. If they don't pass the national exam at grade 12, they can't go to university in Ethiopia. Going to an international school would, what's the word? See, this is the other thing. When you're in a country that the primary language is not English, you start forgetting English because now you're trying to speak Amharic all the time. But yeah, it will cause your children not to have to take those exams, and then exclude them. There we go. Exclude them from having to take those exams. So that's good. I think it puts too much pressure on the children, honestly. I don't even think it's fair that Ethiopian children need to do it. This is just my 2 cents. I think they should be actually doing testing of the teachers, because I think that is where the failure is taking place in the education system. I think if the students aren't performing well on these exams, it might be their fault, but I think also much of the blame would rest on the teachers and maybe the techniques they're using to teach. So anyways, I move on. So that kind of wraps up the schooling situation. And lastly, I'm going to talk about 2 of the most recent changes over the year we've been in Addis. The first one is city changes. So yeah, you've seen in my videos how rapidly Addis Ababa is developing. The city is changing very rapidly, and you know, my personal thought is, I think the modernization will help bring Ethiopia into the modern world. I don't know if I believe that's a good thing. You know, one of the things I actually love about Ethiopia is its traditions and its cultures, and how it's almost a little bit detached from the modern world. You know, I think becoming more westernized is not a good thing. But in the short term, it will provide more conveniences for the people who live in the city. You know, I think that would be a good thing, and maybe, you know, living in a nicer, beautiful city with like leisure activities, parks, and playgrounds and walking trails and stuff like that. Like, there are benefits to those things as well. Biking trails, you know, those are good. But also at the same time, I saw a lot of people losing their homes and losing their businesses and their way of life and their way of living. And, you know, I mean, really, the government just kind of came in and started knocking stuff down. It was like, we need a walking trail here, so we're going to knock down this building. Or we need to widen the roads, so we're going to knock down this business. And, you know, I think it hurt a lot of people, and it set a lot of people back. And I think maybe the end goal might benefit people in some way, but the way they went about it really hurt a lot of people. And I think it almost appeared as though, you know, the government didn't even take the people into consideration. And so that was very unfortunate. And so there's a neighborhood that's not too far from us called Goro, and also Gurji, and pretty much throughout the city. You can just see complete destruction everywhere. And so, you know, we're actually out of the country at the moment, so I don't know how things have developed or progressed since then. But once we go back, I'll try to get some videos and show you guys what's going on. But yeah, so that is one of the major updates that have taken place over the year that we were there. Like when we first got there, in the pretty much the majority of the year, I was able to kind of just walk to this nearby area. I can, if I need to pick up, you know, anything, you know, bread or just kind of shop around. I did do a video where I was shopping over there for a little baby potty for my youngest son. Like, you know, that whole area is gone. It's completely been wiped out. I don't know what they're going to replace it with. I don't know what's happening right now. Like I said, we're not there. But yeah, so we'll see. And I think the other thing that they're doing in the city is painting, like telling the big businesses, especially on the main road, that they have to have like uniform paint colors. So most of what I've seen has been like gray, maybe some white, at least in our area. I don't know if it's by neighborhood that they're doing different like color themes or something. But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been seeing. The second most recent change has been this new like floating currency thing that the government just implemented. So some people have been using the, I'll say, alternate markets, and that means they've been sending their money to Ethiopia outside of the proper like banking channels. And so the government is aware of that, and I guess they were trying to collect those dollars and pounds and euros that are coming into the country under the radar outside of their established system. And so what they did is they created this new floating currency. They made the birr floating, and it has devalued the birr, I think, what is it, 30% at this point? So the government rate for the dollar right now is $1 to 107 birr. So if you're still in the US or Europe or wherever, now is a good time to start sending your money. If you are planning to buy something or just build a savings in Ethiopia, you know, you can do it now at a higher rate. It used to be around $57, $58. So it's pretty much doubled almost since, and that only happened a month ago, less than a month ago. So, like I said, we're not in the country, so I don't know the impact that that has had on, you know, local goods and the price of goods. I've been told that everything has gone up. I don't know by how much or how significantly it's gone up. But I definitely will update you guys once we get back, because we will be back in time for school and the new year and all that stuff. So there'll be so much to update you on. I got to get new uniforms for the kids, figure out how I'm gonna get them to school, because now they're not in walking distance anymore. So we might be buying a car or hiring a driver. I'll take you guys along on that process. But yeah, that kind of just wraps up this video, this 1 year in Ethiopia review. I hope you guys found it helpful and informative. And I know it was a lot of information, so if you want, feel free to go back and watch it again, and then leave a comment if you have a question, or you guys can send emails, whatever you like. But yeah, thank you so much for sticking with us and for watching and continuing to support us on this journey. Please don't forget to like this video if it was helpful, and subscribe to the channel, and keep watching. You have lots to see, lots coming up. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.